Hello, welcome to Spotlight, a star of artistic light in a dark winter sky.
Spotlight, brought to you by the Isle of Man Arts Council.
This evening, we hear from the man behind a new piece of public art at the Mountain View Innovation Centre, sculptor James Sutton. Drop in on the official opening of the new Home exhibition at the Manx Museum that we previewed last week. Hear from one of the two new members of the Isle of Man Arts Council, Geoff Witham, and enjoy another poem from the Manx Bard. Remember, do get in touch with any creative artistic endeavours you might be involved in, planning, hoping to create, or really want to put in that spotlight. You know the list. Whatever it might be, do get in touch. Email spotlight@manxradio.com or Howard Kane with an E at manxradio.com. I don't really care what the art is, just get in touch and we'll feature you. Simple as that. So, we heard about the new exhibition Home last week via the first of a series of podcasts linked to the show. More than 80 members of the Creative Network set the challenge to create a piece of work about what home means to them. 65 pieces of work selected for display in the exhibition, which is supported by a series of new podcasts from the artists who are featured. The show was officially opened on the 18th of November by Chair of the Trustees of the Manx Museum and National Trust, Jonathan Hall, who also pointed out in his opening speech that as well as the new exhibition, M&H staff and curators had also been busy on another great project.
As well as the installation of Home, the team at the Manx Museum are curating an ambitious new rehang of the National Art Collection. This will open next month, so hopefully we'll see some of you then. Hopefully we'll see all of you then. The rehang will include some of the earliest known views of the Isle of Man, engaging portraits of Manx society figures and examples from our internationally celebrated internment art collection. Although we will only be able to show a fraction of that 6,500 works of art, there will be work from leading British artists such as Brian Neal, Kevin Atherton, Martin Hearn and Michael Sandel. All of them were taught at the influential Douglas School of Art, which was created by John Miller Nicholson and his contemporaries in the 1880s to nurture Manx artistic talent. There are many parallels between Home and the rehang of the art gallery, and they both celebrate the Isle of Man as a source of artistic inspiration, with artists capturing the natural beauty of the island and also recording the people and the world around them. It's a real pleasure for Manx National Heritage to work with Creative Network and to provide an exhibition space for the work of the latest generation of Manx artists. Together with my fellow trustees, I wish to thank all of the artists who have created works for the exhibition and the entire team who have been involved in it. I know a huge amount of work and goodwill has been required. Thank you all. I'm sure that Carola will mention members of the Creative Network, so I would like to recognise the contribution of the museum staff. So there's a shout out for technicians Colin Cowie and Julian Quain, and our curator Hannah Murphy, who I've seen somewhere around but can't quite see at the minute. I will now hand over to Carola Rush from the Creative Network, who will introduce our latest exhibition, Home.
So first of all, thank you all for coming. It's really nice to see the gallery full of people. And you might be glad to know that I'm not going to say very much other than some heartfelt thank yous to people. I am one of half a dozen of the Creative Network's 80 odd members who, stupidly some would say, and I might agree, serve voluntarily on the organising committee. As we were finishing the install of this exhibition this week, Colin asked me why I do it. I replied that I've asked myself that question many times, particularly in the lead up to this exhibition. But I think all of us in the network do it because we share a belief in the value of art and creative practice as a valuable and crucial part of a healthy society. I'll leave that bit there. One of our aims as a collective of artists is to promote and showcase the amazing and diverse work that the island's creatives bring into being. This exhibition and the accompanying catalogue represents one way in which we go about fulfilling this aim. The catalogue was made possible through the support of the Isle of Man Arts Council, and we're very grateful for that. And it's a vessel which will keep this artwork together as a body of work long beyond the exhibition, we hope. The Creative Network's first vote of thanks has to go to all the artists who submitted work to the project. Not only those that you see represented here, but also those who were not selected to have their work included. Unfortunately, every gallery has limited space and we can't show it all. Without the support of the artists, a project like this wouldn't get off the ground. We are very thankful that all participating artists have been brave and open enough to put their work forward. Each individual has responded from a personal point of view to a given theme of home, and as a result we have a really diverse and fascinating exhibition, which I hope you'll agree. For me, the Isle of Man isn't a first home. I made the mistake of marrying a Manxman who couldn't wait to come back, as is often the case with Manx people away from home. On leaving England, I also left a job in a contemporary art gallery, and I knew I couldn't replicate that here on the island. I was pleased when I came to be accepted to work as photographer for MNH, and whilst in that role I was involved in staging many exhibitions in this very gallery. So getting the opportunity to stage this show here is a bit like a coming home for me. The Creative Network couldn't achieve an exhibition like this without the help of Manx Social Heritage, and to the whole organisation we are extremely grateful. When I first arrived on the island, there was a standing joke amongst artists saying that you had to be dead to get shown at the gallery in here. If that were ever true, it certainly hasn't been in recent times, and I can assure you that all the artists represented here are alive and kicking.
The home exhibition at the museum runs through until the 14th of April next year. It's open from 9:30am to 4:30pm daily. The podcasts available now via the Manx Radio podcast page. Just search for home.
Spotlight, brought to you by the Isle of Man Arts Council.
Pieces of public art, always a joy to see around the island, or anywhere else for that matter. And there's now a new one to add to the roster here after the sculptor James Sutton visited the Mountain View Innovation Centre recently, just outside Ramsey there of course, to install his new sculpture Sacrifice. The commission is based on a Bible passage in John's Gospel in the New Testament. Although completed earlier this year, the AFD group, which operates Mountain View, gave permission for the piece to be exhibited at Bewley, home of Lord Montagu and the UK National Motor Museum, as part of the extensive Sculpture at Bewley summer exhibition. But now we have the joy of seeing it on the island. Judith Lay went along to Mountain View to chat with James and started, well, with a far more intelligent question than I would have managed.
You are experienced in creating outdoor structures. That's what you do. You work a great deal to commission everything from private gardens to public spaces. So the first thing I guess you would take into consideration would be, what are the elements that are going to be around this?
Yes, it's always a massive concern. But I mean, we mostly work in sort of stainless. So this piece we've clad in copper over the top, so we could sort of get that patination and colour but have the strength of the stainless behind it and underneath it. So it's more, we like to over-engineer things to make sure they're going to be safe. So we went for a very thick-walled box section of stainless, which then makes it very tricky to sort of curve and get to the right shape. And then it's just the sheer amount of time in order to put the copper on. We can't weld the two together, the stainless and the copper, and we don't really want them touching, so we had to sort of separate them slightly, and then we had to drill it all and fix them together without them touching properly. So it's just, you have all these lovely ideas, and then the reality of making them always takes 10 times longer than you expect.
I was just going to say, do you ever stop and think, why did I make it like this?
Oh yeah, about halfway through we do review So, I mean, the figure was probably the most pleasurable part because I got to just play around with clay and create my piece over time. And then I made the mould ourselves, and then we essentially sent that off to the foundry, and they do a lot of the work for me. So that was a nice sort of relaxing end to the project, really.
Are these materials that will weather and add to the design of it almost as it weathers?
Yes, so that's why we've chosen to go with the copper, really, because the stainless obviously won't change. So now it's been clad with a copper. As the weather sort of affects it, it will get, well, throughout the next sort of 10 years, it will change completely. So it started off a very sort of shiny brown. It's been an exhibition for a couple of months. It's already sort of taken on some patination from the elements.
Now, this is what I wanted to ask you. It's been in Bewley over the summer. David gave permission for it to be in Bewley over the summer. What was the reaction, or do you in fact get reaction to it in such a context?
Well, I mean, I don't live local to that, so everything I've got sort of from what people have told me, but the staff there told me it was very well received and they all loved it. And I've got lots of positive comments, so hopefully it was well received and they enjoyed it. But yeah, it was interesting to go back and see how the patination's already taken place, so just over those couple of months. So, I mean, in another 10 years, the copper will probably turn bright sort of green, like you see on old church roofs. And then the bronze, we've sort of given it an aged patination. So that will change a little bit over time, but I didn't want the bright, garish bronze as how it comes out. So we've already aged it to kind of give it a bit of texture and interest.
Let's just talk a little bit about you, because, as we just mentioned, you do everything from commissions for private gardens to public installations. You also do creative workshops, and these you offer from everything from care homes to primary schools. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's less something I've had a chance to do since lockdown, really. But before that, yeah, we did hundreds, like you say, schools, care homes, just community groups, all sorts. It's just a way of helping people be creative, really. I mean, some of it was literally, we did mud sculptures where we're just making giant mounds. We'd get about 10 tons of mud in and shape it into a dragon or a starfish, and then we'd turf over the top, and you ended up with sort of a living hill sculpture. Some schools we did large things in chicken wire, like life-size animals, and then we'd cover them in mud rock, and it's just making a lot of mess and just being creative and inspiring. It's great fun. So yeah, I don't get the opportunity quite so much anymore. We do sometimes when we're working on large pieces with the community. For public art, we'll have sort of consultations and we'll do workshops to go along with that, to come up with ideas and parts of the design, which often works really well. But it's just a case of encouraging ownership as well. You don't want to just impose your work on this space and tell everyone they have to enjoy it and they have to like it. So if it's going in someone's street or park or area, it's nice if they have a bit of a say and a bit of ownership of what it actually is. So for example, we did a recent piece for a school based on lockdown and people's experience of COVID, and loads of the children drew designs that we transferred onto the butterflies. We created this child out of all these butterflies, and then with all their sort of butterflies coming out of it with all their pictures of their experiences of COVID and how they felt about it, and this sort of idea of being released from lockdown. And it worked really well. Yeah, it just meant that I'd not stuck this piece in there and told the kids they had to enjoy it, but they could take their parents, they could show their piece and their interaction. So sometimes it can be extreme as that, other times it can just be ideas and coming up with concepts, and then we'll go away and come up with a sculpture from that.
Frankly, everything you mention, I want to see it. I want to find it and look at it. It all sounds great. But whilst you're constantly being asked to meet briefs, and do you ever long to do something just for yourself?
Yes, a bit of both, really. I enjoy the sort of challenge of being given a brief and coming up with ideas. And I mean, doing the pieces here for David is sort of a little bit in between, because obviously we stick around Bible verses and passages like that, but other than that we sort of have a bit of creative freedom to go where we like. So I do make my own bits that go in exhibitions and that sort of thing, but as you can imagine, these sorts of scale of work costs a lot of money, and it's not the sort of thing I can afford to just churn out on my own and hope someone buys. It's a real privilege to have clients that are happy to foot the bill and let you kind of experiment and come up with these exciting pieces.
Sacrifice joins the impressive Mountain View sculpture and art collection. It's open to the public, it's free of charge, you can go there during normal working hours. Let's have another poem from the Manx Bard Boaksey, now well into her role, and she'll introduce the piece herself as usual.
This one came about through my college studies. Although most contemporary poetry doesn't have any fixed rhyme, metre or form, we had to study the popular versions of poetry such as villanelles, haiku and sonnets. And we were challenged to write a sonnet within a very short space of time. Now, for poetic reasons, I've called it a sonnet in a week, but in actual fact I had half an hour to write this. But anyway, this is called A Sonnet in a Week. A sonnet in a week? No way, think I. Yet others face far bigger challenges, beginning fresh, new homes, new jobs, new life, arriving at new lands, strange languages, for them, a brand new opportunity to grow, to realise their long-held dreams, secure, well-fed, and truly, wholly free. Safe-housed, their refuge, no one hears their screams. If only this had happened by their choice, and not because bombs fall and sirens wail. These refugees have no cause to rejoice. Their new homes mean they now no longer quail and fear. Their children, though, they didn't want to roam. They'll always question, why can't we go home?
Great stuff as ever from the Manx Bard. Soon, no doubt, she'll be doing a novel in a month. Last this week, but by no means least, the Isle of Man Arts Council has recently appointed 2 new members, and we'll be hearing from both of them in Spotlight in the next week or two. First off, the super talented and ever charming Joff Whitten, best known for his brilliant work at the Children's Centre, of course. Joff has been appointed following the retirement of former Vice Chair Dr Laura Rolls, who served 8 years on the council. I started by asking Joff to tell me a little about his artistic background.
I have come from a creative kind of practice background. I studied art at university, fine art at university. I actually started a music degree when I was about 18, but then thought I was going to be in a successful rock band, so I dropped out as quickly as I possibly could, as soon as a whiff of some minor interest came from a record company, because I was 18 and fairly stupid. But it's always been around me. It's very much been part of my kind of, life and identity and existence, and I kind of really enjoy making things. It's part of what makes me feel like a human being, I guess. So yeah, for me, it's a really long question, this, and I can't answer it in a simple way, but it's just something I've always done. I think music is where I started. I came to music much more cleanly, I guess, than art. I don't think I understood art for a while, and I'm not the best painter. I'm not a very good, line drawer or painter, but that kind of creative practice idea of inverting things and inventing things and making up stuff in your head, just that really appeals to me, and that's kind of where I have started making, I guess. Yeah.
But good skill sets then to bring to the Arts Council to sit actually on the council itself.
Well, I genuinely hope so. Yeah, and with hopefully humility. I hope I'm there for a good reason. I've essentially 25 years working in the creative cultural arts sector, both as a maker myself, but professionally. I've worked for organisations like the Arts Council England, and amazing places like the Yorkshire Sculpture Park and the Courtauld Institute of Art. I've got a fairly decent career within the arts. I'm hoping I'm bringing a useful skill set with me, but just the dual side of that question, kind of bring the skill set and understanding from my professional background, but just the passion, energy and enthusiasm, to make things and be involved in making and being around people who make. I find that part of the joys of life, basically.
And so did you have a perception of the Arts Council, who they were and what they did, before actually being called up to sit on it?
I didn't know everybody around the table, but I knew a couple of people by reputation, so I had an idea of who was already there. And I think it's great because it's a real mix and blend of skill sets and enthusiasms and experience. So that was something that was quite appealing to me. I felt I could belong as part of that group, I hope, but also learn from them as well, because people have got some great skill sets and backgrounds and really high profile people as well. So that was really, really exciting to be part of that group. I've done a couple of committee things before in my career professionally, so I sort of understood essentially the responsibilities and the makeup of something like that. So it wasn't a complete surprise to me, but at the same time, it's really nice to meet a new bunch of people and be part of them, I hope.
And how do you think, because we were just chatting before we started recording about various other aspects of work on the Isle of Man and being involved in a small community and working in the media and such like, and your own role with the Children's Centre there, how do you think how do you feel that they are sort of perceived in the Manx diaspora, as it were?
It's a jolly good question, and I'm going to try and answer that delicately. It's a really interesting topic, and I don't want to kind of get into controversial areas here, but sometimes people perceive art as being extra to the burdens of life. There's kind of, we should be paying for hospitals, we should be paying for schools, we should be paying for decent government infrastructure. Why on earth are we, encouraging and funding the arts? I always like those questions flipped upside down. If we can't feel like we're being interesting, impassioned human beings, what's the point of things like hospitals and schools and whatnot? So I think a successful arts infrastructure is absolutely essential to a healthy, hearty community. So the perception on Ireland towards it, I find people are really enthusiastic about the work of the Arts Council because it promotes and supports brilliant stuff. There's some brilliant, absolutely world-class arts being made on the island. And I mean, saying arts plurally, so I mean music and theatre and writing and visual arts and deck arts and fine art. There's so many different things that are being made. And I think sometimes that's a little thing. I think people aren't necessarily aware of how much stuff is going on. And that's one of the things to be on the council is quite exciting for me, as I get to hear and understand the breadth and depth of the work going around. So, yeah, broadly, generally, I think people are really, really positive about it.
And anything you think you can bring yourself with your own skill set, we were just hearing about there, anything you can sort of bring which is unique or particularly useful to actually be sitting with the other members?
Well, I hope so. And again, I don't wish to kind of undervalue the skill set around the table by saying, oh, I'm going to bring this, because I'm sure it's there already.
Sure.
But, my background of working in certain organisations, I hope will be an interesting reflection to other members around the table. Broadly, generally, because my day job at working for the Children's Centre is all about supporting, helping and encouraging people who are experiencing challenge, and that's something that's kind of embedded to me professionally. So all my work with the arts generally in the UK was about working with disadvantaged communities or communities who don't necessarily engage. So I hope to bring some of that element to the Arts Council. I know that voice is already around the table, but I'm just going to be reinforcing it and encouraging it, because I genuinely, honestly think it can be life-changing. Experiences of working with children who feel are completely disassociated or detached from school, and then they find drama, and it just enlivens them and turns them into these lovely little kind of excited human beings that want to do, performing. They don't necessarily become actors, that's not the journey that they necessarily go on, but just gives them something to kind of feel an identity with or something like that.
And is there anything, I don't know whether you actually can do this within your role on the Arts Council, whether you have to be seen to be entirely impartial, but anything you sort of feel you would like to sort of promote or champion during your time there?
Well, that's a jolly good question. How can I answer this? I think I just hope it's just really great stuff that gets supported by it. That's the thing I'd like to champion, just kind of that notion of quality, just make sure that everything is just as exciting and well thought out and as inspiring as it possibly can be. And again, I know that voices around the table, and I think everybody, I'm not speaking on their behalf, but have that same kind of energy. But that's the thing I'm really looking for. Right.
Yeah. And I must admit, I don't know exactly how it works. So are you approached, or do you apply, as it were?
It was an open application, so I submitted a proposal and was interviewed by a collection of people, and I'm not quite sure how many people they interviewed at the time. And then, thankfully, and I was really kind of honoured to be asked and invited onto the council. So it's an open process, and I think periodically when people do either have to retire or choose to move on, spaces come up, and my understanding is that it will always be open access.
And I think we can gather from just a brief chat there that you're clearly looking forward to it. You're quite excited about the role. Something a bit different for you, do you think?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very much so. It's a really lovely part of part of the world to be connected to. That was a bit of a muddled sentence. I'll try that again. I am genuinely excited to be part of it. It's really lovely to be further connected to the island. I'm not from the island. I'm from the UK, and I've been living here for about 5 years now. And it's just, again, that part of me trying to really do my very best for the community, do my very best for the island, and be part of what's going on, and excited and enthused by it. So yeah, really thrilled to be invited to be part of the council, and looking forward to doing my very best.
Well, listen, many congratulations. Lovely chatting today, and hopefully we'll catch up during your tenure with the Arts Council with more exciting projects in the years to come.
Thanks so much, Howard. Thank you.
I'm sure he'll be a brilliant asset to the council. We'll hopefully be speaking to the other new member, Professor Joe Davis, here on Spotlight in the next couple of weeks. That's about it this week. Don't forget, if you want to hear anything again, go to manxradio.com, download the Spotlight podcast, listen where and when you want. Why not try it whilst out starting your Christmas shopping? just remember to take your earbuds out when you're speaking to someone in the shops. It's very rude otherwise. See you next week. Until then, look after yourselves, and whatever you're doing, be creative about it. Cheerio.